Welcome to the first set of videos regarding the development of clinical cases for the Petrus Sirius game. If you are a teacher interested in joining our team, this tutorial will guide you through the necessary steps to make your own case. This is Petrus Back Office, the place where you can put your skills into motion to develop challenging and motivating learning experiences for your students. This is also the place where you can browse several menus that we will discuss in separate videos. So, do you want to develop a case to be played? This is the right place. Please make sure that you are up to date on topics regarding diagnosis and physiotherapy before you start. After getting permissions from your school administrator, fill your username and password to start. In this welcoming screen, you will find in the middle some statistics about the contents on the back office. At your left, under the Petrus logo, the navigation panel gives you some shortcuts to the different parts of the back office. To start developing your case, you should go to the Case List button, List of Clinical Cases. This is the starting point to create your case. Maybe it's a good idea to start by browsing the database for cases that might correspond to the features that you are looking for. If you find one, you can use it to play as it is or further adapt it to your specific needs. If it fits what you need, but it's written in a different language, you can translate it. The process is similar to the creation of a new case, but you will find that most of the data you need is already in the database. Just click in the Copy or Translate buttons that you will find at the top right in the case you're browsing. Another option is to create a case from scratch, and this is what we are going to do now. In this screen, you will find links to the necessary tools of cases development. The different tabs, like clinical exam, tests and scales, or even diagnostic and objectives, relate to the different parts of the game. Let's start by filling the patient's and case data on the respective fields. Select a name and a surname for your patient. You might want to use a name from which the player may infer some information, like gender or nationality. A description of the case in keywords for players and back office will be very useful for someone browsing the cases database. Now, choose the language of the case that you are creating and define the publication status. Publication status can be draft, finalized, validated, or Petrus certified. Because you are creating a case right now, for the moment it is better to classify it as draft. Don't forget to register before selecting your avatar. On this button, you can choose the avatar that best represents your patient and that can give clues to the player. In Environment 3D box, you can choose the background of the game to contextualize the place of the consultation. It can be a hospital, a retirement home, your clinical practice, or the patient's home. Don't forget to save. Let's move to the next screen. We will now enter in Patient Interview and File. Patient Interview and File is the place where the case developer writes information of his virtual patient that in clinical practice would probably be collected during an interview. Here you can see several categories we suggest. They relate to the patient's case demographics, clinical information, and environmental information. You can expand and retract the categories to see what's in it just by clicking on the title. When you click in a category, an array of items appears. Fill it in the way that characterizes the person in your case. Patients' data is a category dedicated to patients' demographic information. Some of this information, like gender and laterality, have already preset values you can choose from. In others, you must fill the appropriate information. As you select or fill the information, you should decide a level of relevance or pertinence of an item for the physiotherapy diagnosis. The level of relevance 1 is automatically selected by default. Also, you can decide where the information will be available, for example, in an interview or in the patient's file. If you, by any reason, need to remove an item from those you selected, just use the trash bin icon to delete it. Save before exiting to the next screen. In this section, you can write information about prescription of self or of a health professional like a doctor or a colleague, as well as the patient's reasons for consultation and his complaints. Because physiotherapy diagnosis is a participative process that relates to patients' goals, we added a field to write about them. Again, you must decide whether the information will be retrieved from the interview or from the patient's file. Remember that if you don't select patient's file, it will be automatically retrieved by the interview. Give each level of pertinence and save before exiting to the next screen. On this screen, you can have the opportunity to characterize your patient in relation to features associated to good or bad health behaviors such as good nutrition and regular physical activity, or, on the other hand, addictions like smoking or heavy drinking. This is also the place to describe your patient's contextual factors, personal and environmental. How do you think each particular factor affects your virtual patient? Is it a facilitator or a restriction? Please take it accordingly. Decide whether the information will be retrieved by the patients in the interview or in the patient's file. Give each level of pertinence and don't forget to save before leaving. It is highly probable that your virtual patient has a medical history prior to this episode. Use the different fields in the category to describe it. Where will this information be available? In the interview or in the patient's file? Please select the appropriate one. Give each a level of pertinence and save before exiting to the next screen. This part of patient's interview is dedicated to the results of clinical exam. For example, you can write a generic item about pain or specific items about pain that a patient values the most. You can use the fields to characterize this virtual pain. Give each one of them a level of pertinence and don't forget to save before exiting to the next screen. On this menu, you can add information about other tests that a patient might have done, like X-rays, MRIs, laboratory work at blood or urine analysis, or even ECG or spirometry. You can also add a PDF file from actual data from a real patient. Just don't forget to make it anonymous first. Don't forget to save before exiting to the next screen.